Oh,
What?
my headphones died.
SpongeBob, Johnny Bravo kicking by the beach bar. TJ making.
I've been deliberating a little bit over the past 2 days. I was like, yeah, it's been so long since I've done, a YouTube series, YouTube channel, anything like that. I could reinvent myself a little bit. I don't need to always do the exact same thing. But then every time, it's just like it's built into me. I'm like, hello, everyone, and welcome to Bikini Bottom Inquirer. It's the one intro that I have. It's the one thing I have. Welcome to a new channel, a new show, a new podcast with Who Needs Normal.
Hello.
Hello.
I should just, we could just open by screaming, you know.
It's like the scream for ice
don't wanna
cream
blow
thing.
up
The
my
guy pulling
microphone,
up
otherwise
to the drive-in. It's got the scream for ice cream. And the person on the other eye is like,
I love
ice cream.
I love that one. And he just keeps going and he keeps getting more aggressive as he goes. I love that one.
But yeah, welcome everyone to a new podcast series. So I have been wanting to do something like this for forever, because once every 2 months I'll have a little Nickelodeon spell where I'm just like, oh, I really like Nickelodeon actually still. I wish there were other people who were like my age that talked about this, so I wasn't just listening to political podcasts all the time when I'm doing stuff. Wouldn't it be nice to listen to something light every now and again?
Let's talk about the political climate of the world.
Let's talk about the political climate and how Nickelodeon factors into that. Nickelodeon's representation of different cultures. Let's talk about that. Let's
Talk
see how
about
they're going
Doug
with that.
Dimmadome and how he is the father of corruption.
Let's talk about Dan Schneider. Let's
Wasn't ready for that one.
let's really get into all that. But yeah, I just really wanted to. I always love talking about this type of stuff, but I've never really had the opportunity to, because everything I do is always very highly produced YouTube videos. That's mostly, I've got a point, I've got something to talk about. But I've always wanted to chat about this stuff, and I feel like we've always had a good camaraderie and a good basis of conversation. But we grew up with very different shows.
Yeah, it's true.
So do you want to give a little introduction for yourself and the stuff that you have been doing and are kind of currently doing?
Hi, I'm Who Needs Normal. Well, people probably know me because I make documentaries, for lack of a better word, video essays, retrospectives, whatever you want to call them, about mostly licensed video games. That wasn't really necessarily the goal going in, but that's kind of become my niche, is licensed video games. And talking about the history of them, and namely I've talked about SpongeBob, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, Creature from the Krusty Krab, and Piglet's Big Game is
Isn't
huge
that your
now,
biggest
apparently.
video now? Isn't that your
Actually,
biggest
no,
video now?
it stopped right as it was about to hit it, and so now they're like neck and neck.
Hell yeah.
So technically, SpongeBob's still in the lead. I told my friend, I was like, "Dang it, I have to become a Piglet channel now." And then and then it stopped, and I was like, "Oh, I'm safe. I can keep having SpongeBob be the big thing."
I have
But,
such a core memory of watching Fred5107 do a live stream of some Piglet game, and Fred is the most un-PC, most intense YouTuber. It's just a level of content that I don't even go into. But he's such a fun guy.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't think I know who that is.
He's like the father of SpongeBob YouTube.
Okay.
He was the guy
That's probably
talking
what I've heard
about. He started the whole revive Battle for Bikini Bottom movement. All that was him. All these videos, his original videos, he was the first person doing it, and all of them were getting hundreds of thousands of views and all that. He started all these not crowdfunding, but the signature stuff. He was getting everyone to harass Nickelodeon with emails and all that. He is the reason it happened.
I did
because
not
of him.
know that.
In from 2013 to 2016, it was just him.
It was actually kind of funny. After my first Big Sky video, I talked about how, I don't remember, I mentioned something somewhere about how I didn't fully understand who had the rights to these games at this point. Clearly I had some misconceptions of it. And I remember arguing with this guy on Twitter. It was still Twitter at the time. About...
Everyone just says Twitter.
Yeah. I remember being like, that's not going to happen. He was like, no, they have the rights. They've talked about doing it. And I was like, no, you're confused. And then lo and behold, a month later, it gets announced. And I had to go back and apologize. And he was like, he had gone back too, to be like, I told you so.
You both went back.
Yeah. So, because the conversation was fresh, and it wasn't like a heated argument or anything. It was just like,
Yeah.
believe you, basically. And I was happy to be wrong. My feelings about that remake could be a whole episode unto itself, but
we'll get into that in the next episode. But I want to so obviously the stuff that you're doing is these kind of documentary stuff. Is that what you started off doing? Is that what you've always done? Because most people have had a few different YouTube careers at this stage.
So it's like a kid growing up in the early 2000s, 2010s, like everyone starts to want to be a YouTuber at some point. I watched like Fred and Rhett and Link and
hell yeah,
Julian Smith growing up. And so at first that was kind of like the style of stuff I always wanted to do was like skits and like comedy stuff. And so my channel was just my name at one point, and it had the cringiest garbage you will ever see.
Hell
I actually just stumbled upon a horrible Minecraft Let's Play that I did for like 7 episodes, where it was like camera pointed at the screen. You can barely make out anything that is happening, but
we've all been there. We've all been there.
I almost posted it as like an April Fool's thing, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
For all of you Piglet people.
Yeah.
Guys, this is the meat and potatoes of this channel.
I was basically trying to be Tobuscus at the time, I guess, which I feel like a lot of kids were trying to do, was emulate Toby Turner. Also, in that Let's Play, the chicken jockey kills me, so I feel like that, and that's become a meme. I don't know if you know about the chicken jockey meme, but
I've seen the movie. I was there when the entire cinema erupted, and I was like, how do they know these lines? How do they... Every, like, 10 minutes, all these kids exploded. And I'm just like, I think I'm too old for this now. I think I'm too old.
So I started out doing, like Let's Plays and comedy sketch types of things as a cringy little child. And I look back at those, and I'm like, wow, no wonder you are the way that you are. But at a certain point, I erased all of that. I was like trying to, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I was like, I'm going to reinvent it. How I came up with the name Who Needs Normal actually was, it was originally going to be like a webcomic. And I think we've talked about this before, but you probably don't. I wanted to do animation and like webcomics for a while, and I wanted a catchy name. And at the time I was watching people like The Odd Ones Out, and I was like, that's a good name. I need a name like that. Yeah.
Or Donix.
So I just sat down and brainstormed names, and that one, I don't remember why it popped into my head, but that one popped into my head, and I was like, that's it. And then I was like, eventually the idea of doing a web comic was like, I don't think that's ever gonna work out. But I was like, that could also be a YouTube name. So I made it my channel name, still not knowing what I was going to be doing on the channel. And I don't remember what year it would have been. I would look it up, but that would take too much time.
I'll look it up while you're talking.
The Gaming Historian did a video called The Story of Tetris, and I don't remember what year that was. That was what I meant.
Oh, Story of Tetris, yeah.
And this video, I was like, I don't know. I was fixated.
7 years ago.
It was so fascinating to me, and I just watched it over and over and over. And now there's like a whole movie and a video game dedicated to that story. But I remember, like, on like my 10th watch through of that video, I was like, you know, I could do something like this if I really tried, like if I had a good idea for it. And then I kind of thought back, because I'd always toyed with the idea of doing like a review of Revenge of the Flying Dutchman or like Piglet's Big Game. All the games that I've covered so far, basically, I've always thought about doing videos on, even when I was a kid. And then at some point I was laying in bed watching this video. I was like, I could do this with like Revenge of the Flying Dutchman and Big Sky, because it's weird like that they just disappeared. What happened to them? I want to find out that story. And I tried to do that before. I talked about that in the video, and I talk about that in the new version of the video that I'm working on, teaser. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try again. I'm going to just dig as deep as I can. I didn't dig nearly as deep as I could have, I guess. I'll use the Wayback Machine, and I'll find what I can find. And at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I still barely know what I'm doing as far as research goes. It's like other people go to like actual museums and historical archives to look stuff like this up. This isn't like stuff that you can just find wherever. And I ended up finding more than I thought I would, just like by looking up, like the Internet Archive has like multiple versions of their old websites, and it's like you kind of find a string and you start to pull on it, like you find one little piece of information that leads to another little piece of information. So it's like once you find out Big Sky started out as Daylight Productions, or started out as Callisto, which started out as Daylight Productions, and you kind of trace that back, and you start to understand the story from there. And then at some point I was like, I'm just gonna like look through the credits and try to like look these people up, and that was basically what I did. And the first person I found was Matt Scobilia, and I looked him up, and on Twitter I found his Twitter, and I was like, I think this is him. I don't know for sure. I'm gonna tweet at him, because I don't think DMs were open at the time for him. He ended up opening them so we could talk, but I just tweeted at him. I was like, hey, can I ask you some questions about Big Sky Interactive? And he was like, now that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. And he was like, absolutely, let's talk about, let's do it.
All my NDAs are passed. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the crazy thing. It's like, I don't know if there ever was an NDA in that situation. It was a bad situation. It was a lot worse than I ever realized.
I have NDAs for podcasts that I'm managing. I have NDAs, so I'm not allowed to talk about them for a podcast.
There's no evidence that there was ever any. I mean, obviously there's like, their information was confidential, but it's like, legal stuff is weird in and of itself, because I actually have their contract, and there's some sketchy stuff with it where it's like, they weren't honoring their own contract. THQ were not.
Wow.
And like, yeah.
That's one of those interesting things. Yeah, because just speaking of that, that's one of the things that I think is very impressive about you, is your willingness to go out and speak to people and to kind of pull on that thread, and that takes you into confrontations with people, asking people all these questions, where a lot of other people wouldn't be kind of comfortable with doing that. Like, I've seen the scripts, I've seen the conversations you've had with these people, where it's just like, most people aren't comfortable to do that type of stuff. So there's a level of commitment there that you don't see very often.
And I had to adjust to it. I was not this person. Like, 6-7 years ago, I couldn't be here sitting here. I could not sit here and have this conversation with you, because it's like I was too much of a nervous wreck. I remember when I was talking to Matt the first time, I was like shaking, even though it was just like Twitter DMs. I was like, he's gonna hate me or something for something I ask or whatever. And as you do it more, it's like, well, because like I've had multiple people. Oh, excuse me. I've talked to like the guy who made Nicktropolis, the Nickelodeon MMO that was around for like a couple years. But the problem is like he acted like he was open to talking. We had a brief communication, and then he just kind of ghosted me. And that's happened to me many, many times. Recently, I got
Why do you think that does happen?
I don't know. And because
is that an NDA thing where they open up and then they look back and think they're not allowed to?
I don't know if they changed their mind, if they decided they were uncomfortable talking about it, or maybe they just literally forget. I mean, in some cases, they're still working, like, in the industry. They get busy. And it's like, I'll follow up. In the case of the Nicktropolis guy, I think it was mainly just a case of, like, he forgot and didn't really feel like, I don't know.
Being chased up about it, yeah.
Or, like, in the case of, like, recently when Piglet's Big Game blew up, I had already talked about it, but I never really got into the history of it because there was nothing to be found. As far as I could tell, they were all French and probably didn't even speak English, which apparently was not the case, because the founder of the studio, the lead of the game, came out and posted all this development material on Twitter. And I was like, I'm just going to see if he would answer a few questions. And he told me that he was definitely willing to answer questions, but he couldn't necessarily sit down and do like an interview, which was fine. That was all I wanted. But then when I start asking the questions, I never hear back, which is fine. And in that instance, I mean, again, he's still in the gaming industry, I think. He's like working. And I think largely the reason he even got on Twitter in the first place was because he had heard that the game was blowing up.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he probably wouldn't. He probably doesn't even use Twitter half the time. And I think that's also a lot of the cases is, like, when I talked to Billy Kane from Big Sky, you want to know how I found him?
Yeah.
I found his personal Facebook and messaged him on his personal Facebook. And when you message
So for people who don't know, who's Billy Kane?
Producer of Revenge of the Flying Dutchman.
Okay.
He gave me a lot of the original information that I had in my first video. And so he just has a Facebook, and I found it, and I was like, that's definitely him. The picture matches. I'm just going to try it. And the thing about Facebook is a lot of times if you have it set up a certain way, you don't see messages from random people who haven't added you as a friend. So it was just happenstance that he saw my message. And it was just happenstance that he was like, yeah, let's sit down and chat. And since I've had that conversation with him, other people have interviewed him about different games he's worked on as well. He was heavily involved in, like, Wing Commander, which I don't know a ton about personally. That was a big EA. No, it was PC largely. It was a big series from Origin Systems, who also made the Ultima RPG games. All of the people at Big Sky, honestly, were
Oh, wow. That's very classic.
Yeah.
Wing Commander.
Well, it's actually
that's
funny.
Real DOS.
A lot of the people involved in Wing Commander, or one of the guys who was involved in Wing Commander, I believe he's involved in that, what is it
Star Wars
called?
Squadrons?
There's a controversial flight space sim game that...
Oh, the one that keeps taking everyone's money and isn't making the game?
Yeah,
Star Citizen?
that's like a spin-off, like a spiritual successor from Wing Commander from someone that worked on that game.
Is it Star Citizen?
Yeah. Star Citizen's like heavily related to Wing Commander, so I find that funny. But yeah, so I reach out to these people, and I don't always hear back, and that's been the case with a lot of people. Even with this new project, it's like I'll start talking to someone, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I'll answer some questions," and then once I start asking the questions, I don't ever hear anything from them again, and it's fine. You learn to let it just roll over your shoulder, off your shoulder, and you're like, "Well, I'll have to figure something." That's another thing. Once I started doing my channel, like Who Needs Normal as it was, where I was making these documentary videos, especially after the Creature from the Krusty Krab video that I did for the rehydrated relief thing. That's actually a whole story in and of itself, how that even ended up being a rehydrated relief thing. But maybe we'll talk about that.
Let's take it back real quick. So you've done your Big Sky video. It's your kind of first big video, because all your other ones, the other ones are shorter length, and then Big Sky is quite a fair bit longer.
The Big Sky one was longer.
It
was about 50 minutes, and then I did a couple of shorter videos. And
this was you editing on a PlayStation as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's a story. I did not have editing software.
We would be messaging. I mean, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, the video's going really well. I've been on my PlayStation for like 6 hours." I'm like, "What do you mean you've been on your PlayStation?
Yeah,
playing games when you should be working?"
That I made those videos on my PlayStation in Share Factory, and he was like, "What?" I don't think people fully understand when you are broke and you don't have editing software and you get this free one with your PS4, you learn to jump through hoops to make it work. And jump through hoops I did, and I will never go back. For the love of all things good and holy. Kids, if you have to do it, please.
Just pirate something. Just get Da Vinci or something. For your very last video,
Film
you'll
Express,
use Share
I believe,
Factory.
is free. That's the
Hit
one
Film
I use
is
now.
quite cool. HitFilm's quite cool. I used that back in the day a little bit.
HitFilm's the one I still use, and I have access to Adobe or like other higher quality ones. And honestly, I've had more success with HitFilm just with it running better than like Adobe.
Yep.
So
I get it. So so you've done this big video. You're doing some shorter ones. What kind of like are you building up some steam here? You're starting to build some like followership. What's going on here?
What the first like big breakout was, where people, because at first I just kind of posted the video and you just kind of sit and you're like, well, and that actually leads into that actually leads into my first interaction with you, I guess. So it's like I post the Big Sky video and nothing at first, obviously, and then I start kind of like looking. I keep track of like who's posting about this game or this company, like using keywords on like Twitter or Google, like, or YouTube and just being like finding conversations about this game and this company and trying to like worm my way and be like, well, actually this and this, and maybe you might want to watch my video. It's pretty cool.
I forgot about that.
And so my first experience with you was I was a subscriber long before we had met, and not long before, but several months before. And you posted your Dutchman video in December, the December after I posted mine.
I got so much shit for that video. I remember that was the first video I did where I got like so much like negative feedback.
Maybe it was because of my video. Maybe everyone was like,
actually,
screw you.
Podcast stuff.
Well, I remember watching and I was like, this is really high quality, but I literally
most of it's wrong.
I literally went back and found, it wasn't like most of it was wrong, but there was like, you had the misconceptions that other people had or something. I don't remember exactly what you said. It's been a while since I watched that video. But I went back and found the first time the first tweet I tweeted at you. I'm trying to find it. Let's see. I know it's in here somewhere. I have to scroll through all my dank memes, derailing the conversation. Okay, here. And I just lost it. There it is. I said, which by the way, your Twitter at apparently used to be CNB Corp, because that's what I added.
Yeah, CNB Corp.
Okay. And I was like, I went back and I saw that. I was like, oh, I don't know who CNB Corp is. But I said, hey, man,
I'll get to that.
I just watched your Revenge of the Flying Dutchman video. And I just noticed some things that made me want to share a project I worked on last year with you. You don't have to check it out if you don't want to, but it seems like you may have some misconceptions. And then I shared the link and then I commented, I of course don't mean any disrespect. Your video was good, but some of the things you said about Big Sky weren't really true. It's understandable as these things have been spread around for years. I just want to spread the truth about their situation wherever I can. And that was another thing. I was kind of on like a crusade to tell the truth about their story. Like that was like my goal for a while. I felt very passionate about that.
Yeah.
And of course, I kind of ended up spreading misinformation in my own video.
Well, how about we pause on your side there and we'll jump back to mine. We'll kind of come up to our meeting point there.
So I tweeted it at you.
We can cover all of my misinformation.
Sure.
I did a little bit of spreading of misinformation, my favorite little pastime. So I started my YouTube stuff back in probably about 2013 was when I really started, which is I'm homeschooled originally. I did primary school homeschooled.
I was too.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
For a while.
Look, we should change the name of the show, the homeschooling podcast. Compete with all the crunchy mums on like
we'll get my cousins were all homeschooled. We'll get them all on.
So, guys, what's wrong with you? Nothing?
So why were your parents trying to control your life?
For my primary education, I was homeschooled. High school, I did normal schooling. So in primary school, I'm throwing out Australian terminology. It'll be different to American and all that.
I mean, I follow.
Yeah. So primary 1 till 7, high school 8 till 12.
Oh, that's very different. Okay, so yeah, so like elementary here is like kindergarten through 8th grade. Well, not 8th grade. Kindergarten through 6th grade usually, and then we have middle school, and then we have high school. And
that's
then
right,
also,
you guys have middle school.
Some states, like Indiana, have intermediate schools in some districts, which is like 5th and 6th grade or something. American school systems are weird. But yeah, anyways, continue.
That's weird. So my mum organized a homeschool group thing in this area, and there was probably about 100 or so kids that went to this every Wednesday, and so I would go there, and it would be our kind of main socialization stuff. We'll be there each week, and you make friends and you have different play dates throughout the week. And so I met my best friend there, BJ. We've been friends for like 20 years at this point. We met there when we were very little. And
the origin story.
The original. We were both really creative and building stuff and all this, and we would find old cameras and we would film like comedy sketches and all that. And so my mum took note of all that. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that kind of like when you asked about like what I did before, that was I had a high school friend who like that was me and him. We did stuff together like that. So I was just going to say I had a similar experience, but I didn't think to mention him. So yeah.
Yeah. because growing up in this situation, we didn't have a heap of access to the internet, really. This was early 2000s Australia. Australia barely even had internet at this stage. Australia didn't have proper internet till about 2015. That's when we got speeds higher than like 2 megabits per second internet. Still, it's not great. I'm having to use Starlink for this damn call right here.
Good old land down under, I guess.
Yeah. They don't have any internet down here. So they were trying to work out ways to, invigorate us with all that. So my mum organised a series of events. She basically organised a school for a bunch of us older kids who were super creative. Yeah. So her and a bunch of other mums got together and funded it, where they would hire experts in different fields to teach us a lesson a day, teach us a day each week. And so we did stuff with gardeners, where they taught us different plants and all stuff and how to maintain that. We worked with an architect, where we were designing structures and building them, like full life-scale size ones. We built. That
sounds wild.
Stuff. And then we were working with a filmmaker. So we worked with a guy called Vinny, who is love of my life. I adore Vinny. He's such a cool man. He played in one of like the villains in the reboot Superman movie, the Superman Returns. He played like a bit part in that. He always plays like villains. He's got like a thug face, so he always plays like guys that get beat up in different movies. But he went through the process of teaching us how to make a film, from everything from scripting to filming. We did all of it, to editing, everything. And it was a group of like 5 or 6 of us, and so that was my and BJ's first experience with that, and we loved it. It was our favorite thing ever. And we did a big event at the end of the year where all the families came. It was like 80 people or something came and sat in like the structure we had built to watch like the viewing of the film that we had made.
Sounds like a cool school experience. I wish this was my childhood.
We did that twice. So the first one was just like a normal film. Second one we did was a film, but we had to write in a certain way. We had to use iambic pentameter. So we had to use the Shakespearean writing scheme for all of our dialogue. So it had to do ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-ba. It's like all the dialogue had to follow that route. But yeah, so we did that, and then that kind of wrapped up after about 2 years because different people disappeared, and so the funding kind of wasn't there. It couldn't be afforded by so few people.
Yeah.
So then me and BJ were kind of out on our own, so we started doing it ourselves. So we started organising stuff for people. I would do the writing and directing. BJ was always basically the main actor, and we would have anywhere from 5 to 10 other actors in different scenes and all that. And so we're doing this when we're 12, 13. And we needed to put it somewhere. So me and BJ are obsessed with Jacksepticeye at this stage, and we love YouTube. So we start putting it on YouTube, and that's where we come up with a name: C&B Corporation, Chester and BJ Corporation.
C&B Corp.
C&B Corp. Yeah. So we start doing that. We're doing that for a few years, where we're making these short films and all that. And I'm kind of experiencing YouTube a bit more because this is when Australia now has some better internet, and I'm kind of able to explore stuff. We go through our Lego phase of watching Star Wars Lego, like stop motion.
That phase as well. Yeah,
we all had that phase.
Made a couple. They were not good.
Yeah, we had a whole separate channel of doing stop motion animation with BJ's like stuffed animals, and there was lore to this. There was lore to it.
You were Plush channel.
We had a Plush channel. Yep. So we were doing that, and then I was kind of going more into the kind of gaming sphere, and we were doing some gaming stuff because we were both into Minecraft, so we were doing parkour videos. But most of it was we would do the stuff so that we could spend more time in the editing softwares and learning how to do that. And BJ was learning how to color grade, and I was learning how to use these different softwares. And this is our first time jumping into Adobe and so on and so forth. Because at that stage, we were both in high school, so we were getting Adobe for like dirt cheap. It was like $10 a month or something.
I miss when you could just like buy it outright. That would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's over in DaVinci now because for that, the same reason of he bought it and it paid for itself years ago.
Right. I've never tried to use that one yet. So
I haven't really either, but yeah. So we're in that world, and I start finding stuff about SpongeBob. And I've grown up with SpongeBob. I adore SpongeBob, especially, and Jimmy Neutron as well. And I find this one YouTuber called Fred5107 who is making videos on a SpongeBob game I've never heard about, which is Battle for Bikini Bottom. So I grew up playing the movie game with my brother, scouring every inch of that game for any possible secret or anything like that. We loved it. And so then I'm watching this guy, firstly for the reason, like, I have no idea what the game he's talking about even is.
Say, that's still wild to me.
So I completely missed that. I played a little bit of Revenge of the Flying Dutchman because on a trip to Europe, we were in a store in London, and I just found it. And I was like, Mum, I need this game.
Playing the real SpongeBob games.
I need this game. I don't even know this existed. And I played a bunch of like PC ones. I'd mostly played PC games.
Yeah, that was your background.
Ones. But yeah, so I'm watching this guy and I'm loving these videos. But he just suddenly stops. He stopped in like 2015. So a few months before I found him, he just stopped. And so then I start to do my own research into all the stuff. And I find out that, and all of his stuff is about trying to reach out to Nickelodeon because THQ's gone, and reaching out to Heavy Iron because maybe they'll have some, sway in all this. And so there's nothing going on. And then I do some research and I find out that THQ, that Nordic has purchased THQ's like assets, and they've now rebranded themselves. And including those assets that they purchased the rights to a bunch of these old SpongeBob games. So like the publishing rights for lots of stuff.
Right. There was a bunch of Nickelodeon things, I think, from what I understand, but they've really only used SpongeBob so far.
They purchased the Jimmy Neutron rights. They purchased the Fairly Odd Parents rights. They purchased the Jimmy Neutron rights, and there was one other, maybe Tack or something like that. They purchased the rights. So there's a list of it, and I was like, "There's no one talking about this. This is the biggest development we've had on this subject in like 5 years, and there is no one talking about this." So I whipped out a camera and I recorded it all. So I made a super edited, because that was my focus at that time, super edited, super highly produced video about this whole subject. And the entire time I'm talking about, like, I wouldn't be doing this, but Fred isn't making a video on this. You should all go check out Fred. I'm completely copying his thing here. This is his, like, topic, but you guys should check, like, we need to be talking about this.
What channel was this on?
This was on, so this doesn't exist anymore. This is what I'll get onto it. So this was on CMB Corp, which is now CMB Studios. Okay. Because we worked out corporation was a dumb name for a film production thing, so we changed it to studios.
I was going to say, I remember I had a friend, a different friend. We were TNT Studios because we both started with T, so it was like TNT. Like, yeah, funny.
Yeah, it's cool. You guys are so cool.
We never did anything with it. We just talked about it, but
that's half the fun. So I made this video, and it was the first video we'd ever done that was successful. It got like 10,000 views. And in 2015, like that was a big deal for us. And we got like 500 subscribers for it and all this. And then that kind of created this little bit of, and so I did a bunch of those videos. I did like 3 or 4 ones. I did one like once a week on every little bit of information I could find. And they were all doing super well. But then we kind of came to the conversation of like, with BJ, of like, this isn't what this channel's kind of for. This channel is for films, and you're making all these SpongeBob videos that are drowning out every film project that we're working on or anything like that.
So cringy.
And he doesn't care about SpongeBob at all, so he's like, what is this shit? So I was like, okay, I'll make a second channel and I'll release it there. So we made CMB Extra, so the extra content.
And that's what I don't know what you like. Do you still intend to put stuff on that channel, or have you kind of moved on from that channel?
I'll get onto that because I have moved on for a very specific reason, because that channel is more or less, the well's kind of poisoned. Okay. Which makes it just about impossible to post on that channel any further. So yeah, then I start making this stuff on the other channel, and I'm really enjoying it. That channel's blowing up. It's doing really well. It surpassed the main channel in like a matter of 6 months of me doing these videos. And then I took a pause because like I was going into like the harder era of high school and all that. And then I came back, and that's when they did the announcement for the new game and all that. And I look around, and suddenly there are all of these bean sprouts around. There are all these new YouTubers covering all this, and they're doing it faster, and they're doing daily videos on it. And it's people like Riders, Sheriff, Zach Pack. All these guys have just like popped up, and they've been doing other stuff, and they kind of in the space. But then they come in and they're doing like higher produced stuff. They're doing really cool stuff. They're really good personalities, strong personalities, and they're fun guys. And suddenly there's all this camaraderie. We're all chatting. We're all like working on stuff together. We're doing stuff like conjoined. And I'm really enjoying it. But then I'm a very creative person, and I take a lot of pride in creativity. And for me, there was starting to be this niggle in the back of my mind, like, this is all slop. This is all pointless content.
I have my own thoughts about this whole part of this whole arc of the story. I have my own side of this arc of the story, but keep going.
Yeah, well, I'll just explain this a little bit, then you can take a... I was like, I'm making these news videos, and yes, they're getting all these views, but none of them are as impactful as those ones that Fred was doing, or the ones that I was doing at the start, where I wait like 6 months and I come out with all this information. And you come out of it knowing more. You come out of it with actual information. No one... Like, yes, people will watch it, but no one needs a video of me looking at the cover art of this new SpongeBob game. It will get 20,000 views. It'll get 15,000 views and all these comments of people talking about it and all that stuff. But no one actually needs that. There's no value being added there. And so that really poisoned it for me, and I slowly stepped back more and more and more.
Jeez,
kind
this
of
one
disconnected.
17,000?
I've deleted a lot of them. A lot of the news
I think
ones.
it's like a reaction
removed.
of the reveal or something.
Yeah, I've kept those. I've kept the big kind of landmark ones and ones I did with other people because I don't feel right about deleting those. But there's dozens of news ones that I've done that got heaps of views that I was just like, this is slop. This is pointless. But yeah. So what was your side of it?
So I was just gonna say, like, remember? So when Rehydrated got revealed, I started like going around and finding, I wanted all the information I could get on it. I went around and started subbing to these channels. So and like just basically looking up and looking at all the channels that were talking about it. So again, basically everyone you just listed: Writers, Zachback, Sheriff, a sprinkling of others, and then also
I'll just say really quickly, I'm not making any digs at any of their content. I'm not saying any of their stuff was slop. I'm talking about my production process.
Yeah, we're all
okay,
friends.
I'm not saying that writers making news videos was
canceled.
Bad content or anything.
You're out
I'm
of the
literally just
SpongeBob
talking
friend
about,
group.
I was kicked out a long time ago, guys. Let's be honest.
So, this was around the time when I was working on the Creature from the Krusty Krab video, and then I don't remember. I think I had subbed to you after your Dutchman video. So this was like I was first subbed to you, and then I kind of started subbing to everyone else, like here and there. And then at some point, you guys all started posting. Actually, first of all, I reached out to writers because I was like, I had this development document, like their original pitch for the game. I was like, this is big. This could be a big deal. I kind of want to get the most eyes I can on this thing. And I was like, let me reach out to this guy. And also, I just liked him as a creator. I thought he was a nice guy. And I was like, I wonder if he would be willing to like work with me on this and collab. So I reached out to him. I don't know if it was through email or Twitter or whatever, but I asked him if he wanted to narrate this whole document thing for my video. And he was like, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. So we were working on this. And I had sent him the script and was kind of waiting for him to have time to work on it. And we were friendly. We were having conversations. And then in the midst of all this, you all start posting these trailers, like the same thing. Like, I don't remember what it was. Something spongy is coming or something like that. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
So you were all teasing this thing, and nobody knew what it was at the time. It was a charity event, but we didn't know that at the time. And then eventually that got announced, and I was like, I remember being, part of me was like, man, I want to be a part of the group. I made a SpongeBob video. Why can't I be in the group? And
I get you.
I was like, I want to be friends. And I remember all I said was, I think I was following up with writers about the thing, and I was like, oh, by the way, that thing you're doing with the rehydrated relief or whatever, I was like, that's pretty cool. And he was like, yeah, thanks, man. And I don't remember. I think he just was like outright like, if you want to be involved, you could be. And I was like, at the time I didn't know exactly what I would do, but he mentioned the idea of, because I was working on this video, like having it be a part of it. And I was like, sure. And of course I agreed, knowing full well it's
how much time you had to do.
So much like months worth of work that still needed to be done. And literally I was I don't know if I've ever told you this. I think I pulled a 48-hour right before I had like the day it went up. Like I think I was up for 48 hours editing.
I think I remember either me messaging you or you messaging on like the group chat we were in of being like,
right, because we started
day
talking,
16.
Because you and I started talking because apparently you had seen my video at some point, but you were working on a video as well for that, and you found out I was a part of it, and you reached out to me on Twitter and DM me, and you were like, I'm making this video, I liked your video, and then I remember saying, yeah, I remember I tweeted at you like months ago saying, watch my video, and you're like, oh yeah, I thought you were just some random idiot or something. I don't remember exactly what you said. So yeah, that was how I got into the rehydrated relief, was I was already talking to writers, and then I was already working on this video, and then you and I started talking and working on this video, and then, I don't know, we just kind of, you and I kind of like jived, I guess. I don't know. You and I, like, I feel like we're very, what would you call it? Like, there's a
compatible?
term for it, and I can't think. I don't know. I can't think of the word. Never mind. Screw it. We're the same person. We have the same... No.
Synonym.
We're into a lot of the same stuff, and I feel like we see creative things in a very similar light, I guess. And there's a word
I think the other reason why I was... Oh.
What?
My headphones died. Gotta change to AirPods.
I was wondering. I was like, is the technology breaking down? He doesn't seem to. I have AirPods over here. You want some? Here, have some AirPods that are probably covered in earwax. What ones are those?
The Pros. I think the Gen 3s or something?
I'm too poor. I only have the normal ones.
Loser, you don't get noise cancelling. I just do it because I do walks, like late night walks.
Right.
And it can be a bit...
That's fair.
I just get scared by cars stuff driving past. They're scary.
I feel like mine do a decent job of just inundating me with sound, so I don't even necessarily need the noise canceling.
Is it still... Has the microphone changed, or is it all right?
No, definitely. It was like...
Okay, cool. I was worried it was going to do a change to the different ones. Okay, I'm back.
Thankfully not. What were we saying?
I was just saying, I think the reason why we connected originally was because I was going through that phase of like, everything I do at the moment with this stuff is pointless and like has no value.
Oh.
And then there's your stuff that, you know, you go a year without uploading something and then it literally changes the landscape of the conversation. So going back to that video I made that video on Rehydrated on this cusp point where your video just come out, but it was only just like gaining traction. I made a video that was the original kind of...
You said
viewpoint.
Rehydrated. You meant Revenge of the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, sorry.
Yeah.
I made a video on the original viewpoint of that game, which is this is something to point and laugh at, and everyone involved in it are idiots and did a terrible job and should be blamed for all of the failings of it. I made that video. Your video changed the landscape of the conversation. You could no longer talk about the game in that light. It was no longer correct. And it was no longer appropriate.
You could, but it was debatable at that point. Because there are still people who argue
I got
with me
so
about
many comments of people being like, that's not correct. Of so many people, that was the video that I probably had the most people calling me out and questioning of stuff. And so now I'm going from this point of like, I'm making these news videos, and then there's your stuff that literally every time you release a video, it changes the conversation. And I was like,
and that was the other thing I was going to
quality.
point out was, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, sorry.
That was the other thing I was going to say is, like I said, I was subscribed to you. I remember the turning point. I was watching your videos about Rehydrated, and you were like, guys, I don't want to do this anymore. You sat down and you were like, I don't like reacting to this stuff. This content sucks. This is not what I want to be making. I remember that video. And I thought that was fun.
I thought I just stopped doing it, but yeah, I think I just
there was a point
like
where you were like, "Oh, we got a new snippet of information," and then you kind of talked about it, and then at the end you were like, "I'm not doing this anymore. This sucks." I don't even remember what it was, but it was like something small, like that everyone else was making videos about, and like you said, the idea of it being like slop, like it really, you're just squeezing any information you can out of what we have at that point.
I think it was they released like the cover art, and so we could see what the pictures were on the back, and so we finally knew that the color grading for Jellyfish Fields wasn't going to be so orange.
I remember
and I was like,
it involved
wow.
Jellyfish Fields. I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is nothing.
I remember seeing that as a viewer and now having that conversation with you. I was like, I remember
10,000 views, 20,000 views. It's still nothing. But yeah.
Well, at that point, I'd only released the one video that really changed things. And that's kind of what I was going to get into before, was just like, I got to a point, especially after the Creature from the Krusty Krab video, where it was like, I don't know what to do with this channel anymore.
You went into hard, like, creative crisis mode for like a year there.
Yeah. Because I was like, I was under the impression nobody would pay attention or watch if it wasn't groundbreaking information, or if it wasn't SpongeBob, because like everyone in my comments is like, talk about Battle for Bikini Bottom, talk about the movie game, talk about this SpongeBob game or that game. And I was like, the well is only so deep. You can only like stumble upon magical information so many times. It's not sustainable. And so it took me a while to understand how to move forward. Now I've gotten to a point where it's like, I can make a video about something and talk about the history of it without revealing new information. Maybe I'm like digging up information that exists that not a lot of people have like gone over for a long time. I mean, there's thousands of articles on the internet about games that are like, nobody's ever going to read those again. Yeah. So why not quote them and show them off and be like, this is how things were back then. This is why that happened. And to a degree, no, sorry.
I think what's interesting, and what you're saying about that well point, because you went on that break and you had that moment of like, what am I doing here? You jumped over what was the next big phase that everything went through, which is, so the game, the big game comes out, which is what we're talking about. This game that has been hyped up for about a decade comes out. Everyone makes videos on it. The entire SpongeBob community died about 2 weeks after Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated came out. The entire thing died. And then we've got, Cosmic Shake that's come out. That is an infinitely better game. It is an incredible game. It can stand up to any of the modern 3D platforms. Fantastic. No one cares. No one talks about it. Barely sells anything. The entire SpongeBob community died the minute that game came out. You cannot upload video on that like you could before. You cannot upload a news video like you could before. No views.
Right,
you cannot upload just a basic review.
Hype dies,
no one cares. The hype died, but the hype didn't move to anything. Everyone got their fill. There was so much slop made. Everyone got their fill. There is no new conversation to be had realistically about the movie game if you're just going to go surface level slop. There is no conversation about any of those games. Everyone's heard it before.
I remember we were having a lot of conversations like in the lead up where everyone was like, a lot of the conversations resulted in my cat just meowed. I don't know if that came through.
Yeah, it did. I wonder if my dog's snoring will come through.
I don't know what he's upset with me. He wants me to stop making a podcast. The conversations they kind of were relegated to, what if they rehydrated the movie game? What if they rehydrated Creature from the Krusty Krab?
Yeah,
like just that was basically what it became at a certain point. I remember that, and I remember thinking, I feel like I've talked about this in videos like 10 times.
Well, so then after that, you're on kind of your slight hiatus, and I went back to making, at that stage, I'm graduated from high school now, so literally that SpongeBob game took up the entirety of my high school career, was making videos on that.
I didn't realize you were still in high school now. How old are you again?
I am... How old? No, I'm not 24 now. I'm 23 now. I'll be turning 24 in a few months. Next month. The struggle of not even being able to remember your own age is, like, you have to lean over to your wife who's listening to this conversation and be like, how old am I? She's not listening. She's got noise cancelling headphones on playing Genshin. Hey babe, how old am I? I forget. When's my birthday? Who am I? What year is it? Who's president? Who's prime minister? Is it Anthony Albanese? See, because I'm significantly older than you then. So that's kind of interesting as well, because we grew up with very similar things, but in different times. I think it's because I grew up with my older siblings' stuff. Yeah. So, we both grew up playing N64, but realistically, I should have been on GameCube by that stage, but I had the hand-me-down consoles and so on.
Right, and I did that. I had that as
from...
well. I had a SNES. For the audience at home, I'm 27, turning 28 this year. So
that's not markedly older.
I didn't say. First of all, I didn't say that word. I said significantly. I mean,
significantly is more intense than marketably.
I don't remember what I said, but I feel like that it's more significant than I would think, because it's
for our interests.
Yeah. Just because we are such... I can't think of the term. There's a term. Everyone scream it at me. We're
similar.
Something souls. I don't know.
Kindred.
Kindred spirits. That's what it is.
Okay.
We're kindred spirits. That's what I was thinking.
Cheeky Anne of Green Gables reference. But yeah, so we have this whole kind of fall apart that happens. And at that stage, I am leaving then to go and start... I'm studying graphic design. I am starting a podcast that's an audio drama.
You did the one podcast that I still haven't listened to this day, and I apologize.
Dark Tides. It's still happening. It's still going. We're on our 4th season. And that podcast is generating its own income and all that. And now I'm starting a podcast company and so on and so forth. So like my world leaves that space. And I came back a little bit for Cosmic Shake because I adore SpongeBob and we did always want to talk about it.
Of Cosmic Shake stuff together, even we kind of talked about it. You did surf and I don't remember when we.
Oh yeah, that was that. I had a little phase there.
I was gonna say you had a phase where you did like all grown up stuff. You talked about the leap, the leapster.
That's right. No, so what happened was I by this stage I had amassed a pretty decently sized audience, and I was really struggling with this whole thing of like I'm just making slop. There's no point to this. And then I made like a video on like some Jimmy Neutron stuff, like a Jimmy Neutron game. And then someone reached out to me, and I was chatting to them. I was chatting to a guy called the Jimmy Neutron Revival Project. That was just the name they used. A guy on Facebook, or a girl, I'm not sure. And they'd been doing it. They'd been doing this petition for a decade to try and get, I think it was like 10,000 signatures. Like every day had been making posts, memes, contacting people, trying to drum up all this type of stuff. And then I did a video on Jimmy Neutron and got all this attention. And so they reached out to me and we were chatting and I was like, okay, I'm going to take on your mission.
Well, I remember you kind of mentioned that to me a while back, just trying to drum up attention for Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah, I did a video. I'm not sure if it's still up on the channel. Yeah, Jimmy Neutron. I did a Jimmy Neutron Revival Project that made 35,000 views 5 years ago, and it drummed up so much interest. And then who's in the comments? The voice actor for Hugh Neutron, and all this type of stuff.
He did some stuff around that time. Yeah,
yeah, he was really into the YouTube space and all that. And I was like, I can make stuff that actually has like an impact and actually does reach people and has a voice and has a purpose and has a reason to exist. So I had this second kind of wind of doing Harry Potter videos, of doing more produced reviews. So I did one on Leapsters, I did one on SpongeBob fan games, I did all this stuff. And I did a retrospective.
Surf and Skate Road Trip. I think I read something for that one at one point.
Yeah, and I did ones that, like Surf and Skate, where I tried to bring on as many YouTubers as I could to do bits and
then you did this really good Skyward Sword video that got 231 views.
That's what killed it. Yeah. I was on this whole high of like making all this stuff, and then I was like, I'm going to branch out, but I actually quite like Skyward Sword, and I think it's misunderstood a lot of it, and no one cared. Yeah, I got like an artwork commissioned for the cover and all that. I was like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was such high quality, and nobody paid any attention to it. That's really sad to me. Because
so at that stage, I was like, I'm moving on a little bit. So yeah, and then had some breaks, and then and then that's what's come to the reason why we're doing this channel and why I'm kind of creating a new channel and all stuff is because I want to do more of that stuff again. Now I've got a bunch of videos in mind about SpongeBob stuff. I'm working on one at the moment that's about Truth or Square and going a roadmap through that of like the production of the actual special and talking about how that special changed the way Nickelodeon views SpongeBob as a product. Now
that's another one people ask me about a lot. They're like, make a video about Truth or Square, and it's like I don't know that there's anything there video game wise,
dude. But the special, right? SpongeBob was so important to Viacom's like stock that for the 10th anniversary, you know what they did rather than celebrating stuff with fans and all that? They went to the stock market and had SpongeBob dressed up there, and they were cutting a cake with different like guys in suits and all stuff from different like ASX 100, all those types of things. It was so important to Viacom's stock market that they celebrated the 10-year anniversary at the stock exchange.
Okay.
With
That's
Paul
weird.
Tibbett in a jacket and jeans with all these like big wigs, and he's there like, yeah, hilarious.
That's weird. I hadn't heard that one before.
And then they had David Beckham signing things for like the event. He's not even in SpongeBob, but he was there signing stuff. But yeah, heaps of fun stuff around that. But the reason why I'm not doing stuff on CMB Extra and all that is because I made a video 2 years ago on Hogwarts Legacy that got 131,000 views.
What the holy
Yeah.
I don't know if I can swear in this.
Yeah, this is for adults. We're not making this for
shit.
kids. And I got like 2,000 subscribers from this. And the
I
game's
never
fine.
noticed this. Holy fudging muffins.
Yeah, like the game's fine. I don't want to keep talking about it. No one cares about it anymore. So if I upload anything on this channel, what happens is it gets released and YouTube goes, oh, none of your subscribers are watching this.
Yeah,
No one cares.
That's the
They
problem
bury
with
it.
doing different things, and
Yeah.
I kind of learned that lesson as well.
Basically the entire channel. So I tried like a year ago, I did a bunch of like highly produced stuff again on different topics and all that. I did stuff on like Jimmy Neutron games. I did like meme things. Literally don't go anywhere because the channel is, the well's poisoned of the way that YouTube handles release stuff is they base the structure of how far to push something based on your subscriber input. So if your subscribers aren't watching it, that indicates to YouTube that it's a low level, a low quality product, and they're not going to push it as hard to people who aren't subscribed. So in my like analytics for this, these aren't being pushed beyond the subscriber area
Right.
because they're using that as a basis of like, oh, it's not receiving interactions on this first criteria, so we're not going to push it beyond. So basically the CMB Extra channel is poisoned at the well because of all those subscribers I got for Hogwarts Legacy that now no one cares about. So anything, I can't talk about it because no one will care. And I can't talk about other stuff because those subscribers won't watch.
I never realized that. That's so weird.
So
I
that's
guess-
the issue with viral videos. That's the issue
Right.
with trying to pursue a viral video rather than trying to pursue growth over a topic and growth
And
over a
I guess-
personality.
Yeah, I guess that might kind of. I mean, that's a good example of kind of what happened to me. I kind of learned this lesson as well, where I stopped. I have the same problem where it's like I try different things and it doesn't get any views, and then the next big video maybe doesn't do as well as I would have hoped that it would have. Over time, it does sometimes, but so like I guess my thing after Rehydrated Relief was I had the period of not knowing what I was doing. I tried some Nintendo stuff because that was something that I was passionate about, but that didn't go anywhere. And I literally had the funniest comment I've ever had where I talked about doing more Nintendo content sometime. Like I did a video about 10 games I want to see on N64 Online. And I
That's
had
right.
this-
Yep.
I got this comment that was like, I don't know if it's, let me see if it's still on here. He was, the fact that I was going to do,
Some
might have
YouTube
deleted
comments
it.
do just puncture straight through to your soul, and it's like,
Well, at this time, it was just honestly funny because he took it so seriously. He was like, Nintendo are the worst company ever. He was so upset that I was making Nintendo videos. He was like, I remember he ended it with, you were one of the good ones and now we're here. And me and my cousin still says that to me sometimes. It was
One
this
of the good ones.
long spiel about like how I was making such thoughtful and important content and like you were different and now you're just making Nintendo videos. And like it was so not a big deal, but he was so upset about it, and I still think it's funny to this day. The reality is that those videos never got any views whatsoever, which I mean that's fine. And then I followed that up with an April Fool's video, which also didn't get any
Funny Cat Chronicles.
traction. Yeah, that was my cousin was doing a weird ARG series at the time that I was like, I'm gonna make a theory video about it just to screw with it. And so the whole thing is really satirical, but I took it maybe too far and made it 2 hours.
Yeah, I was just saying that hour, 47 minutes.
So my first big video like coming back was Rugrats Royal Ransom. and Avalanche Software. And that was the first one where I kind of came to a conclusion about what I was going to do going forward, where it was like, I can get into the history a little bit. It was almost kind of going back to the roots, because in like the Piglet video, it was kind of talking about the history, but really more it was just talking about the game. And that was kind of what I did with that. And you worked with me on that video. You did a lot of the major narration in that one. And it did not ever perform how I would have hoped, especially because
it's interesting.
Hogwarts Legacy was coming out at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. And especially because Rugrats Royal Ransom is undoubtedly top 3 best like Nickelodeon games, quality-wise, and just no one cares about it. No one even like
I don't think people share that opinion. I would have shared that opinion, but like I remember, do you know Ant Dude, the YouTuber Ant Dude?
Is he the guy that makes like? Is he the guy that's always like in a tank top? I'm just like,
I think so,
or like a singlet.
I don't think so.
No, am I thinking? I'm thinking of someone else.
He's kind of in the sphere of like Scott the Woz. I don't know if you know who Chad Tronic is. Just kind of like Nintendo, like video game reviews, basically. And
that kind of higher produced, kind of funny.
Yeah,
they think they're funny.
Became a pseudo SpongeBob YouTuber, like to his fan base, where he talked about all the SpongeBob games. And recently, he talked about all the Rugrats games. And that's one of the things he started doing, is he just kind of bundles all the games together in one video. And so he can't really dive deep into them, but he ended his with Rugrats Royal Ransom, and he basically was like, I don't like it. It sucks. And I was like, yeah, okay.
I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
You need to talk about games within a series of contexts. A series of contexts need to be had when you're discussing anything. So firstly, your context needs to be the era that it released in. So you need to be comparing it to stuff that it was releasing at that same time with. It's like the stuff that irritates me when they're talking about, like, for instance, I made a big point of this in the Cosmic Shake thing, of these reviews talking about what, like, this doesn't stand up to Mario Odyssey. Why would you play it? It's like the biggest game company in the world with the best developers and the most unlimited money. Crazy. How could they possibly make something better? How could they possibly make something better? What do you mean? Of course it doesn't compare. It's a different weight class.
I don't wanna...
like if you're talking about like boxing, it's a different weight class.
I don't want to derail the conversation with it, but I have my own version of this, that I have a script that for another Toy Story video. So in 2010, Toy Story 3, the video game, comes out, made by Avalanche Software.
You told me about this, yeah.
Yeah, I think we did briefly talk about this. And shortly before that game came out, Red Dead Redemption comes out.
The lesser game.
Like IGN, like all the big gaming journalists are like, yeah, it's cool for kids, but it's no Red Dead Redemption. Like, just all these comparisons to Red Dead Redemption, where it's like, it's a Western open world, but it's not as good as Red Dead Redemption. And like, even my own father was like, when the day that I got the game, I was playing it in the living room, and he comes out of his bedroom and he's like, what happened to Red Dead Redemption? Like, and I get it. It was 2 Western themed games that came out at the same time. But again, like you said, totally different weight class, totally doing completely different things.
They're a different purpose. It's like, I remember all the reviews for Lego City Undercover, where it's like, it's just the kids' version
Lego
of GTA. And they're like insulting it for that. And I was like, I'm a kid. I can't play GTA.
I heard it as a compliment, at least when it came out on the Switch. Like, people were like, yeah, it's GTA, but it's Lego, it's fun.
When it came out on the Wii U, because everyone just fucking hated the Wii U and we're looking for any reason to like shit on it. It was like, yeah, it's just like a worse version of GTA. And I was like, well, when we're talking about Simpsons Hit and Run, that's a positive. But for this, that's suddenly a negative. Well, yeah. But yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, I talked about Rugrats Royal Ransom, talked about Avalanche Software. Then I went back to the joke of the Funny Cat Chronicles and did a follow-up video for Halloween, because I thought I was like, I didn't finish the story. I had to finish the story. So then I did like a short film. And I was a horrible actor, but the editing was kind of fun to do with that video, because I never really.
The color grading's pretty good.
I really worked hard on color grading with that one. I worked really hard to make it look like an actual movie, but and then I got sucked back into Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, because a guy contacted me and he was like, I want to make a documentary about this, and I have all this information. Can you give me all your information? Like, he wanted my information. And I was like, sure, I guess. Like, and it ended up being a very bad idea because he turned out to be a not cool guy, but I don't want to say anything too explicit.
What's his YouTube channel?
About it.
What's his YouTube channel? Tell me. What's his?
I don't know if he might, but he had. I don't want to say anything too explicit because people know who released this demo. He had the prototype demo of the game, and he shared it with me, and we had some certain agreements in place, and there was some drama, and
Listen, every time I come into the SpongeBob space, I find someone to have a go at. It's like the guy that was making those Bikini Bottom Tails games.
He wasn't even in the
pissy.
SpongeBob space is the thing. He was in the gaming preservation space, and he had a reputation. I actually I don't know if anyone remembers this. This group has since shut down, but Forest of Illusion was a group that used to release this kind of content. I ended up talking to them about it. They knew who he was without me even having to say his name. I was like, hey, this guy reached out to me. He was being real sus, and they were like, was it this guy? And I was like, yes, it was this guy. And so it wasn't a good situation, and that's part of the reason why I'm making the follow-up video, is because he's never going to make that video. But he has all this information that he's just kind of keeping to himself. So yeah, that's a whole can of worms. But then I started doing, I don't know if you remember, but right around the same time as the Rugrats video, I was also talking about doing the Toy Story video. Yeah. And I was working on them at the same time. And then I ended up scrapping the original script for the Toy Story video and starting over, so that's why it took so long. But my most recent thing, 9 months ago I put that out, was the story of Traveler's Tales, and it was another kind of I wasn't revealing new information, but I was trying to do my thing in a high quality way, and I feel like that was the highest quality I'd ever done editing wise. And I also started having music produced, and that was kind of my lesson, was people didn't really like when I was posting these music things, so I ended up making a separate channel for that.
5 years of Who Needs Normals plays in the next room.
Yeah, that was another one
outside.
And
your parents are arguing in the next room.
There's a trend of listening to music from the next room. That was a thing for a while, and so I was like, I'm gonna make a goofy version of Nobody watched it, but I don't know, maybe my bigger videos get affected by these smaller videos that don't get any views, who knows. But
I feel like it all has to build on that. It all has to be that same kind of.
And now I'm just going back to the beginning and doing the first thing over in a better way. So yeah, it's looking to be 6 hours based on the math. And that's without any kind of review. That's just going over all the development material that I have.
The last 2 minutes is then a review. So anyway, speed run.
If I ever do another review of it, it will be in another 5 years or so. Let's re-review this game. Yeah.
I had an idea a year ago of doing a review series of reviewing these older games, but getting them in the best position they possibly could be. So doing a review series on, say, Flying Dutchman, but it's on max settings in Dolphin with the 60 FPS uncapped. It's all that type of stuff, and then reviewing games this is the best that I can get this game to run, sound, and look.
It still has all the same issues.
But as in a sense of because people are so focused on visuals and graphics and stuff, which I don't really care about. I like the aesthetic of old PS2 games, but you can make the movie game look fantastic. You can make all those games look amazing with Dolphin and that type of stuff. And it's if you could remove that aspect from it, then it's a bit of a different conversation. It's
funny because it kind of when you're doing it with Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, it kind of breaks other environmental things. It's
if you do the widescreen thing, doesn't it?
Polygons will start to pop off the wall where they were supposed to be, or the seams of the polygons will start to break down. It's weird.
But yeah, so that's a bit of a background about the two of us.
And now we're doing a podcast together.
now we're doing a podcast together because we're the only people that still talk to each other. Everyone else doesn't like me.
I guess that's the other thing too. We should address this. It's like we've had a whole arc. We've had different arcs. We had the arc of that guy trying to convince us he was a.
Yeah, we've touched base at different
company.
times.
Yeah.
And there's usually some kind of thing going on where I've picked a fight with someone in the SpongeBob community, or they've picked a fight with me, or someone's like, yeah, not like is stealing stuff from you or renaming their channel to be the same name as yours.
I'm having that problem right now. There's a Shorts channel that has changed their name of mine, and I don't appreciate it. But
dude, the amount of times I've chased people on YouTube over them like stealing my cover art, like my thumbnails for their own stuff, and like I've chased them. I was like, where'd you get this from?
well, I tried to comment, and they just deleted all my comments. So it's like they know.
This was back when I was doing that. Was back when YouTube had a private message thing. So I would just like shoot them private message and be like, hey buddy,
People have
I spent
told
like
me
2
about
days
that.
on that.
I have never heard of I've heard of such a thing, but I never experienced the YouTube
Classic
Messenger.
YouTube. Classic. So many arguments.
I guess my point was just that, like, for a long time, especially after the Raw Hydra relief, everyone just assumed we were a crew. Like, we all were talking all the time. That's not the case. I would still consider Zach and Riders and Sheriff friends, and I'd like to have them on this podcast at some point. But we're not.
I love Sheriff. Sheriff
we
is
haven't
great.
connected much lately.
I talk to Sheriff like once every few years. Chillest
cool
guy ever.
Me and
So
him
good.
have
I'll
not interacted
randomly
as
ask
much.
for things. I'll send him a message randomly like, hey, do you have this like font? And he'll be like, I got you. And I was like, chill. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, no, we get back in contact every year or so to do the next Rehydrated event.
That's what I was going to say. Is I have not
on who's
participated in the last two, so some people might not.
Well, you need.
I wanted
do you
to
have better
part-
internet now? Could you actually live stream rather than
I
releasing
did
a
live
huge
stream for
video?
the other two, and it was fine. But it's more of a scheduling thing. Like, I really wanted to be involved in the last one, like in December, like the one they did for Christmas. And I even told Riders as much. I reached out to him, I was like, hey man, I want to be involved. And then I kind of realized how short notice I feel like that one was very expedited. They announced it, and then it happened, and it was
We
too
were
fast.
chatting about that. We were chatting about it. So it happened in December. We were chatting about it back in, and planning it in. Let me just scroll back. I'm still scrolling. We were talking about this. Okay.
See, I'm
what
not
was
in
I
this.
talking about?
I'm not in this Discord or whatever this is.
We were talking about months and months and months beforehand. And we had all these plans to do a podcast, to do a bunch of shorts, to really promote it and all that. And like I was throwing all the stuff out, but I was throwing all the stuff. I do run a business, so like
Right.
I can help, I can organize things, but I need you guys to be there and kind of down for it. And then just no one responded. And I was like,
Yeah.
we're all getting to that stage in like our mid to late 20s. We're all working, all that type of stuff, and we all really want to do something good and do the charity stuff. But it is hard. It needs someone like this. Probably next year, I'll talk to them about me maybe leading it a little bit more.
Right.
Need someone that's just like able to give it the time. Because
And that's basically what happened with me
crazy
is-
hours, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, that was basically what happened with me. Is I realized like I didn't have enough time to really. I have a full-time job now. I didn't really have enough time to make anything, and I like streaming is exhausting, and I was so tired. And it was right around Christmas where everything was just exhausting in general. So it was like I said I wanted to do it, and then I quickly realized I don't think I can do it, and so I was like, oh yeah, something came up, but I want to be involved for sure.
Well, it's one of those tricky things, because those guys, they put in a heap of effort, right? I think Sheriff did a heap of it. Zach, heaps of effort, organized all that stuff, heaps of it. But it is that time thing. It's harder to find that time, that spare time for all this stuff. So we're doing a new one this year, I believe, because there's the new SpongeBob game coming out. It's going to be a heap of fun, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. Is because ever since Bikini from the Bottom Rehydrated, there has been no real like actual SpongeBob fandom or community or space anymore. I want to thank you, Optimus Prime. I want to create something that is not so hype based. It's not dependent on the hype of a new game or anything like that.
Sure.
But to start to actually build that space and that fandom again, so that we can do charity events, so that we can do stuff like that, and there is like an audience that isn't just there because there's potentially a new game coming out. There is actually like, and focusing on making that high quality stuff, not slop, so that's like they're there for the individuals and for the voices and for the community, and to see interviews with cast members and interviews of all that type of stuff, and not so much I have this tiny bit of news that you only slightly care about, and you mostly just want something to watch while you're eating food.
That was one thing. We did the first one, and it was a huge deal. And then they decided to do a second one, but there was no new game. I think it still went fine, but like you said, the first one was so based on hype that any follow-up wasn't going to feel quite the same way.
Yeah, and it's tricky, and so we're always trying to work out the best way to do it. And I think this year was a bit of a wake-up call for us of like, this needs a little bit... We have the capacity and the ability to do really cool and really impactful things, and we can earn a lot of money for these charities. And when done right, we've got great brand deals with Nickelodeon and with Purple Lamp and all that. Like, we're in really good like positions for that still. It just requires a little bit extra, and it's difficult because we all work. We're all busy.
The rebrushed relief for Epic Mickey.
We gave away codes for Epic Mickey.
Did you? Okay, that's
and
cool.
all that, and the Patrick game, which we should talk about the Patrick game.
We should do a video about that game together, because I feel like.
Well, I was thinking at some stage, if we ever decide to do like a Patreon for this channel or something, the Patreon should be like for watch-alongs and like live streams of different games and stuff like that, of like actually going through games, or like if we're going to talk about a special or a certain episode or something, we do like a watch along on the Patreon or something.
That makes sense to me. But like, I just meant like if we ever do like a formal like review of this game, we should do one together and be like, this is what I think of this game, because I feel like we probably have very drastically different opinions about that game.
I enjoyed it in the sense of I was listening to an audiobook while I played it.
Oh, okay.
And that was great, because it was just this mindless game. And then
what
when
was
I finished
the audiobook?
I was on the, I think, 8th Mashoko Tensei book.
I don't know what words just came out of your mouth.
I didn't expect it's like a 25 book series. Anyway.
What kind of gobbledygook are you speaking? I'm American, boy.
Speak American, please. Where are your Zeds and all that at? Anyway.
I don't speak Japanese like where you're from.
Damn Australians. We technically are part of Asia, so...
Are you? I don't know nothing, dude.
If you want, like, in Australia, if you really want to offend some, like, tradies or some, like, blokey blokes, you just bring up the fact that we're technically an Asian country. You're like, no, we're not. We're friends with America. So, yeah, that's not the part of the world that we're in, though. We're an Asian.
You're nowhere near America, but okay.
We're best friends with America. Yeah, until they start tariffing us, then you hate them. Moving on. Thank you everyone so much for coming along this first episode of a walk down memory lane. Next episode, we're going to be chatting about some of the SpongeBob game predictions of what's going to be coming along the pipeline and stuff we would like to see. And then from there, we'll be jumping into a bunch of stuff about different games, different shows, some Pokemon stuff. We want to talk about the satanic scare of Pokemon.
We have a whole Google document.
We have a whole list. We started this conversation, like the talk about the podcast. Like, if we can't come up with 10 episodes, we shouldn't do it. I think we have something like 40 episode ideas.
I was about to say
in there.
at least 30, probably more, because a lot of them are more vague that could spin off into other ideas as well.
A bunch of them are meant to be series of episodes, but yeah, so it's gonna be a good time. Thank you guys so much for coming along.
I like Nickelodeon.
It's all right.
I watched Recess, no stressing then. The kids next door always playing, messing with each other in the back tree house, chilling and possibly fighting evil, jerking off to Kim and having fun again with my cartoon friends. No classmates anyway, to hell with them, cause I was hanging with who I thought was cool. All the